Hello and welcome to Utility Sports. Today's video, we are doing our final NBA mock draft before the draft on Wednesday. I'm here with Sheldon, and with the Minnesota Timberwolves, they're on the clock here. There's a lot of speculation on who they're going to take. We heard early on it was going to be LaMelo Ball, but now we've heard a little bit of rumblings about other players such as Anthony Edwards. So Sheldon, what do you predict with this selection?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of different directions they could go here at one. Obviously, some are in the camp that think D'Angelo Russell should prevent them from taking a point guard. Many others believe that they should just look at best player available. And to me, I think it's kind of a combination of both. I think, most point guards in the NBA, you don't really want to pair another point guard with them. I think D'Angelo Russell kind of fits more as a scoring point guard, obviously based on how he plays. And I think putting a guard like LaMelo Ball next to him could work, as LaMelo Ball has really gifted passing instincts. So that is what I'm going to mock here. LaMelo Ball out of the NBL. He was really successful there as a playmaker. Only played in 14 games, I believe, but in those games, he really displayed a lot of passing prowess, and I think he'll fit next to D'Angelo Russell fairly well offensively.
Now, with the next selection here, we have the Golden State Warriors up. Also, there's been a ton of rumors about possibly trading down, or they've been kind of saying that they like a lot of the prospects that they've worked out, and they said they're phenomenal. So we don't know if that's possibly to bait somebody into a trade. What do you see for the Warriors?
Yeah, I think the Warriors will stick in here at two. I just don't think they're going to get quite the value that they're hoping for via trade in pick two. I think that's kind of why they were juicing up the pick a little bit to other rival teams. But at pick two here, I'm going to have them go center James Wiseman out of Memphis. He was the number one player in his recruiting class. Rare size at 7'1" with a 7'6" wingspan, a 9.5-foot standing reach, and the guy's athletic. He's going to be able to run in the pick and roll game as a screen and roll guy. He dives to the rim hard and well. He's going to be a putback machine off the glass, and I think that's kind of a lot of the things the Warriors need early on. And I also think he has a chance to be a bridge player for them for the post-Curry, post-Draymond, post-Clay era, because he's got some, of the size that you need, but also he's shown some of the ability you need to kind of become a franchise center, honestly. And I think as a rim protector and with some time, he could grow into a really nice offensive weapon as well outside of just the pick and roll game.
Absolutely. Now, so that's a little bit of trouble for the Hornets with the third overall selection. They really like James Wiseman going into this draft. For this scenario here, they're sticking at three. Wiseman goes ahead of them. So what's kind of on the table for the Hornets, and where do you think they're going to go?
Yeah, I think the Hornets here at this point would be between two players. I think it would be between Anthony Edwards, a player that many feel might be even be the best player in the class. I have him second on my big board, and then Onyeka Okongwu, the center out of USC. Okongwu would really fill in a positional need here for the Hornets. Obviously, part of why they're so high on Wiseman is filling in that center position, giving them a rim protector. But ultimately, I do think that they will go Anthony Edwards, the wing out of Georgia. I think he's going to be a guy who can come into the NBA and be an NBA-ready scorer immediately. He's got an incredibly in-shape body. He's 225 pounds at 6'5". The guy jumps out of the gym. And I think offensively, he's got a lot of upside. I think he would fit right next to Rozier and Devontae Graham early on in his career. And then at some point, obviously, they would probably hope to grow past those two other guards to kind of give Edwards more of the reign of the offense and probably put a few other players around him. And this is under the impression that the Hornets will then realize that they still need to wait on another center going forward. But Edwards right now is the better player of the two, and I think that's why they opt to go him.
So for the fourth overall pick here, we have the Chicago Bulls. Obviously, a new coach with Billy Donovan. We're not exactly sure where management wants to lean in toward, in terms of making a selection here. What do you see for the Bulls, and is Billy Donovan the right fit here?
Yeah, I think Billy Donovan is the right fit. I'm not necessarily high on him as an overall coach. I think that a lot of people who look at his win percentage don't really account the fact that he's had two different MVP type players in Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook in the past. He's had some all-star level players alongside of them, like obviously Victor Oladipo and Paul George. And at that point, he's got a lot of good players. You're going to win games, but so far he hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs a lot of the time. He hasn't made an NBA Finals with them. That was Scott Brooks back in 2012, and I think that I think he's a good coach, not great. And I think that for the Bulls, that's kind of, a step up from where they have been with Jim Boylan, honestly. Looking into pick 4 now for them, I'm going to end up mocking Deni Avdia here out of Maccabi Tel Aviv. And Avdia is a rare forward with 6'9" height, 6'9" wingspan, but he's able to handle the ball out in space. He can take the defender one-on-one off the dribble. He's able to create shots for himself and for others as a playmaker, and that's honestly one of his better strengths. Avdia is able to find others off dribble drive penetration. He's able to manipulate the pick and roll for a player that size. And honestly, kind of looking at him, his floor is a little bit of Joe Ingles, which is a really quality starter in the NBA right now. And I think it'll fit right in with the Chicago Bulls with Otto Porter opting into his final year of his contract. They'll be looking to replace that small forward position moving forward, and I think Avdia is the answer.
So now you're at 5 here with Cleveland. Obviously, they're in rebuild mode as well. The Cavaliers took 2 guards recently here with Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. Where do you see the Cavs going?
Yeah, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers here at 5 are actually going to opt to play it pretty safe. And they're going to stick in the state of Ohio and take power forward Obi Toppin out of Dayton. And for those of you who haven't seen Obi Toppin a lot, he's a forward with rare athletic burst. The guy really jumps out of the gym, puts on some highlight reel dunks. I highly recommend watching him if you haven't. But he's also got some skill to his game. He's a pretty capable ball handler for a 6'9" forward. He's really runs the floor hard. He's also able to stretch out to the three-point line, shot 39% from 3 in his sophomore season at Dayton. And I think that's something that'll really translate to the NBA. I think he's going to be able to function as a screen and roll guy, and also as a guy who screens and even fades out to the three-point line and gives some rare offensive upside for the 5th overall pick here to Cleveland. I think he'll fit in with the guards well there. Long term, and I think obviously they got Drummond and Love right now, but I think for the long term answer, I think Obi Toppin is the move.
And with the 6th overall pick, we have a little bit of a mix-up from what the normal draft order is. Kind of explain what happened with the trade that you had go down and the impact it has for both teams.
Yeah, right here I mocked a Drew Holiday to the Atlanta Hawks for the 6th overall selection here. We have some people asking whether or not that's really kind of where the value is. I believe it is. I think the Pelicans would hope for pick 2, and I think the Warriors would kindly shut that down. And I think the Hawks would be really willing to give up the 6th overall pick in order to put some winning players around Trae Young at this point, and obviously really improve their roster in the current time. And I think that's something that's really valuable to the Hawks. Trying to get Trae Young into the playoffs. They made a move for Clint Capella to help out that current team as well. And I think that the Hawks would be a much better team moving into next year after that trade. And I think for the Pelicans, they're kind of realizing, okay, the West is pretty heavy loaded right now. We've got Zion Williamson. We got Brandon Ingram, who's still really young. Let's try and, plan for 3-4 years down the road. And they make a move now off of a guy who is going to command a lot of money once he hits free agency. And instead they get the 6th pick in what is a pretty, deep class. There's not a lot of drop off between the 4th to 6th pick, 4th to 10th pick or so. So honestly, the Pelicans would be pretty happy here at 6. And then they would actually even be going Tyrese Halliburton, the guard out of Iowa State, in my mock here. Halliburton not only is a unique guard in terms of his ability to play make for others and also shoot the ball from deep with an unorthodox form, but he also would give them a lot of leverage in talks with Rich Paul, Lonzo Ball's agent from Clutch. And I think that's actually really important for them at this point. I don't think they want to lock themselves into a lot of money there on Lonzo Ball, especially with the idea that they're going to probably have to offer the max rookie extension to Brandon Ingram this next offseason. That's something that really is going to resonate with the Pelicans. And I think Halliburton's even got some upside to be possibly better than Lonzo Ball as an overall player. And he's also got some functionality to be able to play as a 2 or 3 defensively. So I think him and Lonzo Ball could even coexist if they do decide to keep Lonzo Ball around.
Absolutely. Now with the 7th overall pick, we have the Detroit Pistons, who there might be a little bit of moving parts, possibly Derrick Rose on his way out. Some of the other role players we saw with Bruce Brown today got traded. So for the Detroit Pistons, it's going to be kind of an interesting pick here. Not a clear selection, but who do you have them going?
Yeah, like you said, it is not a clear selection. There's a lot of different ways they could go. They have a lot of holes. Center is a spot I would consider, especially after they traded Andre Drummond this past season. But I'm going to have them go with the combo forward, Patrick Williams out of Florida State, a player with strong defensive upside. And honestly, he's got some potential to stretch out to the 3-point line in the NBA. And he's kind of just scratching the surface based on what his physical profile really offers. You know, he's a 6'7", 6'8" forward, can really jump out of the gym, and he's got really really long arms, and he's got good lateral mobility for a player of his size and frame with an NBA ready body. And I think the Pistons are a team that'll be sold on that. And he's going to be a long term project. He's not going to be a guy that's going to come in like Obi Toppin and really vie for Rookie of the Year early on. I think he's going to be, pretty happy if he even makes this All NBA second or All Rookie second team in his rookie season. But I think long term, the potential is there, and I think Detroit will be sold on that in their longer rebuild.
For sure. The New York Knicks, they sit here at pick 8. There are a lot of rumors about Russell Westbrook being traded, and the New York Knicks might be a destination. Talk about the possible fit with New York, and if this would be a pick that they would have to trade in order to acquire Westbrook.
Yeah, I think the Russell Westbrook fit in New York would actually be one of the better fits for him. I think that, like he had mentioned, he wants to be a go-to player. He wants to be a guy that has the ball in his hands. And currently at this moment, the Knicks really don't have that. RJ Barrett's, still growing as a player. And I think he would be benefited by having a heavy usage playmaker next to him. And I think, guys like Elfrid Payton, that's just not really who you run an offense through in the NBA. Obviously, they brought in players like Bobby Portis and Julius Randle to try and, kind of give them some front court help. And I think they would still need some shooting there around Russ, don't get me wrong. But I think it would work, solidly. And I think it could get them back to the postseason, which it would be a goal of theirs. But I don't think it would be worth pick 8. I think that's more of a pick 27 type trade with a few extra things thrown in for long-term assets. But sticking here at 8, regardless of a Russell Westbrook trade or not, I have the New York Knicks going Isaac Okoro, guard out of Auburn. And honestly, if they hadn't hired Tom Thibodeau as their head coach, I might not have mocked this. But looking at Tom Thibodeau's draft history and the players he's like to put on his teams, you see guys like Joakim Noah. Obviously, Luol Deng was a big staple on his teams. Jimmy Butler, one of the more notable later picks that he's added. And then even with his brief time in Minnesota, he went out and sought out Josh Okogie at pick 20 a few years back. And obviously the emphasis on defense is noted. He's a defensive-minded coach, and he's going to go out and get the best defensive player in this class, Isaac Okoro, a guy who can switch out in space, can move his feet really, really well, can stick with NBA-level point guards, in my opinion. Really, really quick player laterally, and I think that this would be a really nice pick for the New York Knicks. And I think he's also a guy who's going to be a hard worker, come in with his hard hat every day and his lunch pail, and try and turn around that Knicks franchise.
And with the 9th overall pick, we have the Washington Wizards. There's been speculation on Bradley Beal being traded. We don't believe that that's going to get done this offseason. They're getting John Wall back. So obviously they would probably be looking at center here, and I think that might be where you're going with this pick.
It is. We've mocked this plenty of times here. The Washington Wizards at this point will end up with Onyeka Okongwu. It kind of all hinges on what Charlotte does if Wiseman does go too. But I think Okongwu is pretty safe pick here. He's going to be a guy who can switch out in space defensively. He moves really well in the pick and roll game on the defensive end and also on the offensive end. He's got pretty good north-south speed. He's got some semblance of a face-up game already at this point. A lot of the people like to compare him to Bam Adebayo. I don't quite see that. I think he's more Montrezl Harrell type, especially with his body and everything. And I think he's a little bit less of a playmaker than Adebayo is. But I think the face-up game's there, and honestly, he's just like Harrell. He's gonna be a really effective offensive player, and I think he's even got a little bit higher of a rim protection ceiling than Harrell has shown so far at this point in his career.
Now, with the 10th overall pick, we have the Phoenix Suns. They've made some noise today. They acquired Chris Paul in a trade. What do you see for the Suns, and are they going to look for a wing to replace Kelly Oubre?
Yeah, that is where I do have them going. Obviously, I like the Chris Paul trade for them quite a bit. Their backcourt is one of the stronger in the league now with Chris Paul and Devin Booker both there. You got a good playmaking and scoring combo. between the two of them. And I think that they're going to look for some more shooting help and defensive wing play. And that's why I'm going to have them go Devin Vassell here at pick 10. Vassell is one of my favorite players in the class, honestly. I think he's a top 5 player in the class. Based on my own board, I actually have him at 3rd. And for Vassell, he's a 6'7" guard / wing. He shot over 40% from 3 as a sophomore at Florida State. And defensively, the tape doesn't lie. He averaged over a block a game. He's really impactful on that end of the floor, a true disruptor. And I think him and Mikal Bridges could be one of the best defensive combos out on the wing for the Phoenix Suns for the years to come.
Now, the San Antonio Spurs are pick 11. This is not something we're accustomed to seeing the Spurs picking in the lottery. It's going to be a little harder to kind of project this selection due to the fact that they don't have a draft history this high. Who do you have the San Antonio Spurs selecting?
Yeah, that's one of those things, it is hard to mock kind of where they're going to go. And at this point, I'm leaning towards having them go Saddiq Bey, forward out of Villanova. And my reasoning to do so is he might be actually up here. There he is. He's a 6'8" wing with pretty solid shooting ability, shot over 40% from 3, I believe, this past season for Villanova. And he comes from a winning program, winning culture. And I think that's something the Spurs really value there. He's going to come in. He's going to work hard. He does want to win based off his college decision, obviously, and on the effort he put in at Villanova to work himself into a lottery selection. And I think that's going to be something that Greg Popovich and the Spurs value. He's going to fit well next to DeMar DeRozan, who opted into his final year of his contract today. And he also long-term fits well next to DeJounte Murray, Derek White, and some of the other guards they have on that roster.
Absolutely. I think that's great analysis with the Saddiq Bey winning culture. Makes a lot of sense in San Antonio. For pick 12 here, we have the Sacramento Kings. We could see some moving parts with the Kings, especially Buddy Hield, who wants out of Sacramento, and we're pretty sure that probably will happen. So they might have some more draft pick capital moving into Wednesday night. So where do you have the Kings going?
Yeah, the Kings are another interesting team. I could see them going a lot of different directions. Like you said, the moving parts are, numerous here in Sacramento. Obviously, just brought in new management as well. This would be a team to watch for Patrick Williams if he was on the board still. I think Patrick Williams probably doesn't go past 12 if the Pistons do pass on him. But at this point, with Patrick Williams gone, I'm going to mock Aaron Nesmith out of Vanderbilt here. Nesmith kind of really opened up his game in his second year there under head coach Jerry Stackhouse. Was averaging about 23 points a game, shooting around 8 threes a game in his 14 games, and was making 52% of them. So he was playing really hot. Obviously, it could be a little bit of an outlier. I don't think he's going to be a 52% three-point shooter in the NBA, but he's going to be a guy who's right around that 40% mark early in his career. And I think assuming that they do look to move Buddy Hield, Nesmith will be a guy who can kind of fill in, play next to Bogdanovich a little bit more naturally than Hield does, especially with Fox in the lineup. As he's a little bit bigger and a little bit more defensive-minded than Hield. And I think that the Kings would like that for his versatility as a forward.
Yep, exactly. I couldn't agree more with that selection. And at pick 13, we have the Pelicans again. Where do you see the Pelicans going?
Yeah, so we got the Pelicans here. I had them go first off with Tyrese Halliburton, the guard out of Iowa State. And I'm going to have them take another guard here. I think you look at their roster makeup, they're not going to be a team that really wants to address a center need. They drafted Jackson Hayes last year, and I think they're kind of starting to realize that, okay, putting a center next to Zion Williamson kind of limits what Zion Williamson can really do. So I think that they're going to really try and avoid that. And I'm actually going to have them go Killian Hayes here out of Germany. Hayes is an interesting player to mock. Some are really high on him. Some think he's one of the top 3 players in the class. Others, like myself, think he's not worthy of a lottery selection. But ultimately, I do think he will stick in the lottery. And I think the Pelicans here at 13 with the current roster makeup, they've got a lot of guys who they can count on as contributors moving forward. And I think Hayes at 13 makes a lot of sense then for maybe a boomer bust type pick, because if he booms, he could be the shot creator that they're going to need going down the road, especially even if they take Halliburton, because Lonzo Ball and Tyrese Halliburton really aren't shot creator types. And with the defensive prowess between Halliburton and Ball, Hayes could even still fit in. They could run the 1 through 3, kind of something we saw Oklahoma City this year do with Schroeder, Chris Paul, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And honestly, this is a supersized version of that. You're going to have 3 guards who are 6'5" or bigger. at that point. They're all going to be interchangeable on the wing. And if Hayes can figure out some of that shooting touch that Halliburton's bringing, that could be a dangerous pick.
Exactly. Now with the 14th pick, we have the Boston Celtics, who have quite a few picks in this draft. They're likely probably going to hold on to this selection. Where do you have Boston going?
Yeah, Boston's an interesting team to look at too. Obviously, not a lot of holes there. Many look at that center position, but I personally think that they're going to probably roll Daniel Tice out there as a starter yet again. I don't think this class is super strong near the top end for centers, especially once we get to this 14 range. So I'm going to actually have them mock Kira Lewis Jr. here, a guard out of Alabama, coming out of his second season there. Was recruited there by Avery Johnson, and this guy's got blazing speed. That's going to be, the thing that jumps off the screen to everyone that watches him. He north and south, he's an absolute threat, and I think that gives them something they currently really don't have a lot of is transition offense. Kind of you see Jaylen Brown here and there do that, but Marcus Smart's less of a transition offensive threat. Jason Tatum more gets his buckets in the half court. Same with Kemba Walker in and out of the pick and roll. And I think Kira Lewis Jr. is a dynamic player that can function without the ball in his hands, obviously, which will be important during his time with Boston with how deep they are. But also is a player that when he has the ball in his hands is going to be able to manipulate the pick and roll and function as an early backup to Kemba Walker with real starting potential in the NBA.
So for the 15th overall selection, we have the Orlando Magic, who they will also be probably making some moves this offseason. We've heard rumblings about Gordon being possibly traded. Fournier might be possibly traded. Where do you have the Magic going here?
Yeah, the Magic are quite an interesting team. They did just sign their first rounder from last year, Chuma Okeke, today. And at this point, I'm going to mock them going away from the front court. They've done it so many times, though I would not be surprised if they take a front court player here. But I'm going to actually mock Tyrese Maxey here out of Kentucky. Maxey's honestly a player who didn't really, play up to what I think he's capable of in his freshman season at Kentucky. And we could really be looking at him as a possible lottery pick if he did play up to what he is capable of. And I think with the Magic here, he's a guy who can fit as a combo guard. So you could play him next to Markelle Fultz from time to time or DJ Augustine. But also he could play the one next to Evan Fournier for the time being. And then honestly, when you're looking at the Magic, both of those positions are really big question marks. And I think Maxey could fit into their long-term plan at either one of those two positions.
At pick 16, we have the Portland Trailblazers, and the Trailblazers have been kind of searching for a wing for quite some time now, kind of been a revolving door. Where do you see Portland going?
Yeah, Portland, this one's a little bit different of a pick. We haven't mocked this one in the past here. I'm going to have them go Desmond Bane out of TCU. Bane is a combo wing with really high-level shooting potential. I think he's going to be a guy who can really stretch out the floor for Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. And he's an NBA-ready defender. I think he is fairly similar to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, which, it's not the, most wonderful comparison. But that's something that the Blazers, they're going to be valuing winning this year. They want to make the playoffs again. And obviously with the Suns going out and getting Chris Paul today, I think that, the competition for the 7th and 8th seed this year are going to be really, really high. And the Blazers are going to, really value getting a guy who's going to be ready to come in. And there's not really much better of a player at this point on the board than the senior out of TCU, Desmond Bane.
With the 17th overall selection, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves. And obviously they had the first overall pick. Do you see them keeping this pick or do you see them trading it?
I think they will be active trying to move this pick and honestly possibly back into the top 10. We've heard rumors about that. I think they would also be a team interested in trying to use this pick to acquire Drew Holiday. If the Drew Holiday market does quiet down a bit, maybe they could use this pick and Jarrett Culver to go get him. But at this point, I see them sticking here. I think that a Drew Holiday trade does get done with the Atlanta Hawks, leaving the Wolves here at 17 kind of stuck with not a lot of suitors. I don't think there's a lot of teams really that are going to be vying to move up to this point either. And here at 17, I am actually going to mock Precious Achiuwa, the forward out of Memphis. And Achiuwa, he's got a lot of the things that the Minnesota Timberwolves are looking for after adding LaMelo Ball at pick 1. They're looking for some more size, some versatility defensively, and Achiuwa gives you that. He's a guy who can, play small ball 5, can play the 4. He moves pretty well out in space. Kind of reminds me of Pascal Siakam defensively. He won't be the player that Siakam is on the offensive end, but nonetheless, he's going to be a guy that can switch out in space. He's got really long arms. He's a good athlete for a four in the NBA. And I think the Wolves are looking to add more size next to Karl-Anthony Towns.
With the 18th overall pick, the Dallas Mavericks are on the clock here. We've heard some rumblings about Lou Williams possibly being moved for this selection. Do you like that trade, or do you think they'll elect to keep the pick and select someone?
I do not like that trade really for either side, to be honest with you. I think Lou Williams is a really quality player, and I think that's why the Clippers should be looking to hold on to him. Their window is kind of now for the next, 2 or 3 seasons, while Kawhi Leonard's about, between his early 30s and while Paul George is in his early 30s. And at the same time, I don't think the Mavericks should be a team pressing to really make a move. I think, you're looking at a 21-year-old Luka Doncic right now. I don't think you need to press to really get anything done. I think there's some guys here at this spot that could be long-term answers on cheap contracts for you moving forward. And that's why here at 18, I'm going to mock Tyrell Terry out of Stanford. Terry is a guard that will fit next to Luka Doncic really well. He's got a lot of the shooting ability you need. Oh, is he on the first? Oh, yeah, he is, isn't he? I did this last time, I'm pretty sure.
He's in about the middle.
Oh, yeah, there he is. Okay, thank you. And he's not only is he a quality shooter with the ball in his hands, but he's going to be able to run off screens, something that the Mavericks do a lot. He's going to obviously fit well next to Luka Doncic as a spot-up option, and also as a guy who could take some of the pressure off of him when Luka goes to the bench and replace some of those DeLon Wright minutes.
Now, with the 19th overall selection, we have the Brooklyn Nets, which Brooklyn's had a ton of rumors about James Harden. Possibly this could be a pick on the move in that trade with Houston. Do you see that trade getting done? And will this pick remain Brooklyn's on draft night?
I do think this pick will remain Brooklyn's on draft night. I think that the Nets are going to be pushing and probably calling the Rockets every single morning, noon, and night. For as long as they can, really trying to get this deal done with the Houston Rockets. Obviously, the motivation to get a top 10 player in the world like James Harden, it's obvious why they would want to do that, put him next to Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. But I think right now the Rockets aren't going to rush into anything, and that'll leave the pick to be R.J. Hampton here for the Brooklyn Nets, a player with who some see to have high upside. And I think it makes a lot of sense here. He's going to be a player who doesn't really need the ball in his hands to function. Can work as a playmaker. He's a smart player. And defensively, the upside's there. He's, 6'4", 6'5", really good wingspan for a guard. And honestly, at some point, I think a deal is going to get done where Spencer Dinwiddie goes out the door probably along with some of their other key contributors in the backcourt. And I think Hampton's a guy who's going to come in and fill that role next to Bruce Brown off the bench.
With the 20th overall selection, the Miami Heat are here. Honestly, the Miami Heat are a pretty deep team through every part of their through all their positions. Who do you have going here?
Yeah, this is another one of those interesting selections here. I'm actually going to mock Elijah Hughes out of Syracuse. Hughes is a dynamic creator off the dribble. At 6'6", he's going to be able to play either wing position. And honestly, he's got really good shot-making potential. And I think that's something the Heat, after this past series with the Lakers, realized they need a little bit more of. They need some guys who can create in the half court, especially with Dragic, possibly not coming back. And even if he comes back, it'll probably be a shorter-term deal. And I think they're going to be really putting all their chips in for Giannis Antetokounmpo. So getting a guy who can play, either wing position makes a lot of sense. And he has a long history of running, being a part of his zone defense. Obviously, Jim Boeheim, very well known for running that at Syracuse. And the Miami Heat have the highest zone usage in the NBA, and it's not even close. That was a big part of why they were successful in the playoffs this past year defensively. So getting a guy who has, some prior experience doing so and also shot creating potential, I think makes a lot of sense.
With the 21st pick, we have the Philadelphia 76ers on the clock. This is Daryl Morey's first draft. This is Doc Rivers' first draft. So we don't have, hardly any prior history with these two together. Where do you have the Sixers going?
Yeah, like you said, the Sixers are kind of an interesting team to watch here. They're Daryl Morey's not really known for his draft prowess, hasn't really, hit on a draft pick for quite a while. And I think that they'll be kind of, one of those teams that they might surprise someone on draft night here. But I think that at this point, they're going to go Cole Anthony at 21. I think the value is right there for Anthony. He's going to be a guy who's able to get his own shot off the dribble. And I think that's something that's really valued right now in Philadelphia. Obviously, Ben Simmons isn't really that creator that everyone kind of wants him to be at this point. And I think Anthony's a guy who they'd be comfortable putting the ball in his hands in the half court and kind of replacing Shake Milton long term.
For the Denver Nuggets, they overachieved this year. They ended up beating the Los Angeles Clippers. They surprised everybody by doing so. There's going to be some players that are on the move, some that are going to command more money than they're worth. So for the Nuggets, it's going to be about kind of replacing those guys. Who do you have going at 22?
Yeah, actually, right here, I have them taking Jalen Smith out of Maryland, the center. And I think a big part of this is I think they're going to really put their chips in on keeping Jeremy Grant around. And I think they're going to let Paul Millsap and Mason Plumlee both walk in free agency if they have to keep Grant around. So I think they're going to take Smith, a guy who's going to be able to bring that physicality that Millsap plays with, but also some of the touch and finesse play that Mason Plumlee provides. And I think he's kind of a best of both worlds for them there at pick 22. And I think ultimately Grant will be sticking around in Denver, albeit for a really expensive price tag, probably something he's not worth.
For the 23rd overall pick, we have the Utah Jazz. Do you see them sticking at this pick, or do you see them possibly making a move with the selection?
See, yeah, they're another interesting team to watch. I think that they are probably, calling other places. They just got new ownership. Lifelong Jazz fans from my knowledge on them. So I think that they want to build a competitive team. So I think this pick is probably available out on the trade marketplace, trying to, bring in some veterans, maybe some guard help long-term behind Mike Conley and obviously Donovan Mitchell. But here at this point, I think they might not be able to find a trade. And that's why I'm going to mock Devon Dotson here out of Kansas. Dotson is, a really unique player in terms of what his quickness provides. He is able to beat defenders going left and right around the edge, can use a screen and roll really well. He's got, quite a few holes. He's not the best shooter. He's not the best playmaker. His feel for the game isn't quite there, but I think the Jazz are looking for another guy who can create dribble drive penetration, especially to make their players like Joe Ingles and Bogdanovic a little bit more useful when Donovan Mitchell's out of the game.
So for the 24th pick, we're on another trade watch here with the Milwaukee Bucks. They might be trying to make a move, trying to make Giannis happy, pretty much whatever he wants in order to retain him. Do you see this pick getting moved possibly, or do you think they're going to stick around and select somebody?
See, I think this pick is something to really, really watch as well. And even if it's not dealt for a veteran, I could even see them moving out for a second rounder this year and then also a future second rounder with it, just to get out of the guaranteed money that comes in a first round selection, to open themselves up to possible free agent signings and more trade flexibility, and being further away from the hard cap, something that is obviously really important this year, as the cap number didn't grow like many had expected due to COVID. And they're going to be a team that's really, aggressive out in the trade marketplace in a lot of different ways. They're going to be looking for a replacement for Eric Bledsoe. They're going to be looking for some more shooters, some more creators. So I think this pick is definitely up for grabs, but at this point, I'm going to have them stick in here and take Josh Green, a two-way wing out of Arizona, a guy who has shown some signs of, being able to drive the basketball, can take his defender off the dribble, but also, defensively, really hard-nosed player, competitive athlete, someone who's going to take the one-on-one matchup. And I think that's a perfect replacement for Wesley Matthews, who just opted out of his contract.
With the 25th overall pick, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder on the clock. Obviously, they have a ton of draft capital over the next couple of years. They might be looking for a high upside pick here. Sam Presti historically has not done very well outside of the top 5 in terms of selecting players. Where do you see the Thunder going?
Yeah, that high upside is exactly where I have them going. I have them targeting Alexei Pokusevski out of Olympiakos, Greece. And my reasoning for that is I think that Steven Adams is going to really get shopped this year a lot. I think that, management there and ownership's not going to be wanting to pay a player like him $25 million on a losing franchise at this point going into next year. They're not going to be a team that's competing for a playoff spot. They're going to be probably right around the 10th pick next season. So moving on from a guy who's on a max level deal at his scale, makes a lot of sense, and I think Pokusevski is the long-term answer. He's got a rare skill set, able to shoot the ball from three quite a bit. He's a 7-foot center. It shows some signs of rim protection. Obviously, got to get quite a bit stronger to really handle other centers down low. But then you got to really look at the playmaking aspect of his game. His feel for the game is quite incredible. He reminds you of Nikola Jokic in a lot of ways, capable of handling the rock, passing on the move, passing out of the post. And I think that's something that the Thunder are going to be able to be sold on here at pick 25, especially with the security they have in a whole bunch of other future assets.
So for the 26th overall pick, once again, we're in trade territory. Do you see them moving this selection, or do you think they're just going to stick and select a player?
I think, man, the Celtics are a team. I was really trying to rack my mind around, possible trade scenarios. And with this class, like when you get to this point, it's going to be dependent on a team really wanting a specific guy. So a team to watch would maybe be the Raptors moving from 29 to 26 here, possibly, really cheap trade up option for them. But I don't really, I'm not sold that the Celtics are going to be able to move this pick for something they deem valuable. So they might just take a player. They could use some more wing depth, obviously, with Gordon Hayward possibly wanting out there. He has yet to accept his player option, even though I do believe he will. I think that after this next year, he will not be a Boston Celtic any longer. But at this point, I'm going to have them take Zeke Naji, the forward out of Arizona. He gives them some of that front court depth behind Daniel Tice and also at the 4, behind kind of where Gordon Hayward's been playing. And he's an NBA-ready player. He's got an NBA-ready body. He's at 6'11", and he's got some potential to stretch out to the three-point line, already a quality mid-range shooter, and I think that's something the Celtics could be sold on here at 26.
So for the 27th pick, we have the New York Knicks. Tom Thibodeau obviously got his Isaac Okoro pick with his first selection. Where do you have the Knicks going now with pick 27?
Yeah, with the Knicks here at 27, this again would be, dependent on them not feeling like they can pull off a trade for Russell Westbrook. We already saw Chris Paul get traded, one guy that we thought they would probably be in on. And at this point, then I would have them take Theo Maledon, the guard out of France. And honestly, I don't love Maledon's upside. I think that he's going to be a guy who comes in, gives them some quality, backup minutes early in his career, maybe could grow into a low-end starter. But he's going to give them stability. He's 6'5" guard, quality defensive upside and quality playmaking upside. And I think that's something the Knicks are looking for more of, is stability. And I think Maledon's going to be a guy who comes in, is willing to work hard. And it's all a part of building that culture again in New York.
With the 28th overall pick, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder once again. What do you have them going here?
Yeah, obviously this pick came from the Lakers in the Danny Green for Dennis Schroeder flip. And here, again, I have them taking another upside selection, Jaden McDaniels out of Washington, a 6'10" wing with handling ability. Kind of reminds you of Kevin Durant. Obviously is not a Kevin Durant player. That's why we have him going 28th here. But in terms of some of the raw talent that he's got, there's a lot to work with. And I think the Thunder, again, would be willing to work with a player like him moving forward. Pokusevski and him, they're not going to be first-year contributors, and the Thunder are okay with that. The Thunder right now are going to be focusing their efforts on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on a night-to-night basis in the NBA. So you can see McDaniels and Pokusevski probably getting a lot of G League play early on. But they're two, guys that could, possibly at some point be high-quality level starting players. And I think running it with both of those guys makes a lot of sense long-term.
Now at the 29th pick, we have the Toronto Raptors. Is there anybody that stands out on your board here for them?
The Toronto Raptors, I think that they would be a team that would love to get Precious Achiuwa. Obviously, he's not available at this point, but I think he kind of fits into really what they like to grab, especially with Serge Ibaka being a free agent this year and Marc Gasol also as a free agent. They're looking for some more front court help. And that's why I'm actually going to mock Tyler Bay here out of Colorado. A real defensive presence, one defensive player of the year in his conference. And I think he's going to be a guy that can switch on to 3s and 4s pretty early on in his career. And it has even higher defensive upside from there. I don't think he's going to be ready to be like a true key contributor yet at this point, but he's got some of the signs that you need to really grow into one. And Toronto, they love to do a lot of weird things defensively. We've seen Nick Nurse run a box and 1, triangle and 2, even time to time. Probably known best for their full court press that they run more consistently than any other NBA team. And drafting a guy like Bay with a lot of athleticism and defensive potential, I think would be key for them.
And finally, at pick 30, we have the Boston Celtics once again with another selection. And assuming they stay here, where do you see them going?
Yeah, I see them going with a more conventional center here at this point. Uh, Obviously, I don't think Enes Kanter will be sticking around long term. So that's why I'm going to have them go Isaiah Stewart out of Washington, a guy who was a top 3 recruit in his high school class and a player who I think the Celtics could really sell themselves on here at 30. Next to Najee, he could play alongside Najee long term, but also just gives them a little bit something different, more of a post up option, a guy who really knows how to use his body to steal, rebound, and would kind of complement Daniel Tice as a kind of different change of pace center long term.
So finally, as you can see on the screen, everybody that's watching, here are the results. And Sheldon, let me prompt you with this. Who are the true winners and losers of this?
Yeah, biggest winner to me here at this point would honestly be probably the Charlotte Hornets grabbing Anthony Edwards at 3. You're getting a guy with, real shot-making potential, a guy who could possibly one day be an all-star level player, and you're getting him at 3 just because the Warriors are kind of an interesting situation. Obviously, they don't really need a wing scorer as badly, so I think grabbing Edwards at 3 is a real win. And honestly, to me, I think at pick 1, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves would be losers in this draft, actually. LaMelo Ball, I have him 5th on my big board, and grabbing him at 1, that's the danger of this class, is there's no real true number 1 player. And obviously, he's going to be a guy who sells tickets. I think long-term from a business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. But I don't think his game really necessarily mends that well. Especially on the defensive end of the floor. I'm really nervous about that. D'Angelo Russell and LaMelo Ball are going to be a poor defensive backcourt. I think offensively the fit will be fine, but those two together in a pick and roll with Karl Anthony Towns on the defensive end of the floor is probably a nightmare waiting to happen. And at that point, that's why I have them as a loser. And I also think another winner to look at is the Phoenix Suns. They pulled off a trade for Chris Paul, didn't have to give up a draft asset this year, really only gave up Kelly Oubre and Ricky Rubio. Obviously, you're upgrading from Rubio. And Oubre, he's a nice player, but he's not going to ever be an all-star level player. He's kind of a middling wing. And honestly, using him to get a player like Chris Paul, who's a top 30 player in the world, and you're adding in Devin Vassell, a guy who's going to be able to play off of Booker and Paul, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, thank you everybody for watching. If you're still here watching to this point, please consider liking and subscribing and hitting the notification bell for future NBA mock draft content. Also, we're going to have some of the live reactions possibly, and we'll be handing out grades after the draft is over. We'll try to do it for both rounds, so stick around for that.